All right, testing. Can you guys hear me? You guys hear me okay? Oh, got the mic on.
Nope.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to
Test.
Awesome. We're going to be starting shortly.
Okay. Starting shortly. Kim, this is how we start meetings and stuff. Very good.
Okay, 15 seconds. Stand by. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to all those here in the audience and those watching on KPTS. We know we're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties, so please bear with us, YouTube Live and others. We're going to have some presenters that might have also experienced some little technical difficulties, but we'll work through it. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday, June 7th Board of Sedgwick County Commission meeting. Madam Clerk.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Pamela Murtis Hughes Mason. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Okay. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning. If you will just join me in prayer. Oh God, we come together this day, for this is the day that you created. And we are thankful to be a part of this living experience. So now, dear God, as we gather this day, the Sedgwick County Commissioners meeting, we thank you for all that you are doing within our county. We thank you for those who have put everything into all of the things that go on, God. We ask now, dear God, that you would provide wisdom and knowledge. We ask you now, dear God, as they serve, as the community thrives, God, we ask you, God, that they would have listening ears, that they would serve with integrity, that they would serve with commitment to the county and to all that they embrace, God. So now, God, we rally around about them. We ask for protection over their families, over our county, over our city, and everyone, oh God, who has been empowered to help us soar as never before. Now, dear God, let us be mindful of you in all that we do and all that we say. This we declare in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Lopez.
Present.
Commissioner Dennis.
Present.
Commissioner Beatty.
Present.
Commissioner Howe.
Present.
Chairman Meitzner.
Present. Next item, please.
County announcements.
Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Birmingham from Strategic Communications, filling in for Nicole Gibbs, who I'm going to blame for our computer problems. She put the whammy on him before she went on vacation. We are having some computer issues. We're not able to play a video we had planned. We're not getting audio for some reason. We can pull up PowerPoints, but they will not broadcast like they normally do. So viewers, if you will be patient, we will use the cameras in studio to focus on the screen and show her the PowerPoint that way. And we have asked the Register of Deeds. She was going to make a presentation today. We were going to show a video. She's going to come back at a later time, and we'll show that video when this is fixed. I do have one other county announcement. I'm happy to announce that 39 participants in Sedgwick County's drug court program will graduate tomorrow in a ceremony at the courthouse. They completed an 18 to 24-month program of intensive supervision, drug and alcohol treatment, drug testing, and comprehensive services. The goal with the program is to help felony offenders who have an addiction achieve lifetime sobriety and to lead a crime-free and productive life. Drug Court began back in 2008. It's a partnership between the District Court, the District Attorney and Sheriff's Offices, COMCARE, and the Department of Corrections. Drug Court not only changes the lives of the offenders and their families, but it's also proven to save the county and taxpayers money by reducing drug use, crime, and jail time. So tomorrow's ceremony is significant.
Okay.
And that's my only announcement. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you for the announcements. Any questions, anybody? Don't see any. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay.
Next item, please.
Public agenda.
Public agenda. Commissioners, we received a couple of emails by the 5 o'clock deadline last night. One email in particular, it relates to one of the agenda items, so we'll cover that during that agenda item. And anybody else have any questions or comments on the emails that we received by the 5 o'clock deadline? I don't see any, so I'll make a motion that we approve the two emails we received by the 5 o'clock deadline last night.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Weitzner.
Aye. And on the public agenda that was signed up to address us in person, we had three. Nick Reinecker is the first. Nick, good morning. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nick Reinecker from Inman, Kansas, and I would request to provide my public comment during the agenda item with the agreement between COMCARE and the City of Wichita.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Nick. We'll call on you then. Next up is Kim Qualls. Qualls. Sorry. All right. All of us are familiar with Kim, but Kim, announce who you are and who you represent, and welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody, and everybody in the audience. I'm Kimberly Qualls. I'm the Education and Communications Director with the Kansas Association of Counties, and we're in Topeka, Kansas. So Sedgwick County is one of our members, and I'm down actually visiting. We have our conference. Our annual conference is fairly significant. We have generally 300 to 400 attendees from counties, as well as, and of course the moth is going to make its entrance for me. And we also have usually over 100 exhibitors. So we are looking very forward to coming here in December 5th through 7th, and we will be at the Century 2 and the Hyatt. I was visiting with them yesterday, and it's going to be fabulous. I mean, the hospitality out of Wichita and Sedgwick County is amazing, and we are looking so forward with our host, Sedgwick County, and also visit Wichita and having our big conference here. And it's just going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good education, a lot of networking. It's great to bring together all of the counties kind of across the state so they can visit, because we all know that challenges that exist are everywhere. And so I just want to say thank you to the Sedgwick County Commission and to all your wonderful, amazing staff that we work with. And I'm just pleased to be here, and thank you so much for having me and for sharing. So thank
Kim,
you.
maybe there's Kim, hold on just a minute. Commissioner Dennis.
Kim, I want to thank you for being here today. Also, I just saw you out in Hayes here a month or two ago, where you were the driving force behind putting that entire conference together. Thank you very much. The last time that you all were going to meet here in Wichita, we were in the middle of COVID and we canceled it. So we're really pleased now to have the entire organization back here in Wichita for their conference coming up. So I look forward to it, and I'll certainly attend that. Thank you very much again for coming and setting that up for us.
You are most welcome, and thank you again for everything you guys are doing to help us with that. We
And Kim,
appreciate it.
also, I appreciate all the information the emails you send out to us all, and opportunity to join on Zoom calls and just keeping us abreast of the information. It's very helpful and very useful for all of us. So thank you if you do it, that's great. If staff does it, tell staff we appreciate it. So
We
thank you very much.
Definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Don't see any. Thank you again. Welcome to Wichita. Next person is, I always butcher the name. DeLucy?
It was a mistake.
Oh, it is?
I don't have
DeLucy?
anything to say.
Okay, Miss Rachel. Okay. Okay, so we had, of the 3 people signed up, we had 1 actually talk to us. Okay. 1 out of 3. That'll get you in the Hall of Fame in baseball. Okay, next item, make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion and a second. No comments. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of April 19th, 2023.
Commissioners, you had a chance to review the minutes of April 19th. Is there any additions or corrections or comments? I don't see any. With that, I will make a motion that we approve the minutes of April 19th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Next item, please.
Appointments. Item B, accept the resignation of Charles Hacker from the position of trustee for the Sedgwick County Salem Township Board.
Mr. Papoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Papoon, County Councilor. Item B is the resignation of Mr. Hacker from the position of trustee of Salem Township. By statute, the county commission will then appoint somebody to replace Mr. Hacker to be the trustee, and I'm sure that'll be coming up in a future agenda. So anyway, at this point, just ask you to accept the resignation of Charles Hacker as the trustee of Salem Township.
Okay. Commissioner Lopez.
Be helpful if I turn that on. Thank you. So I appreciate Charles and all of the work that he's done for this township. We are going through a process to find someone to fill this position, and hopefully we will have that done within the next month. So I will move that we accept this resignation.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the resignation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item C, accept the resignation of Michelle SHAHEEN from the Sedgwick County Mental Health Advisory Board.
Okay, Mr. Papoon.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we're asking you today to accept the resignation of one of your appointments to the Mental Health Advisory Board. Each commissioner, I believe, gets 3 appointments, and this is one of the chairman's appointments. So please accept the resignation of Ms. SHAHEEN.
Okay, and I appreciate Michelle's service, and with that, I will make a motion to accept the resignation of Michelle SHAHEEN.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item D, resolution reappointing Brian Powers to the Wichita Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board.
Mr. Papoon.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Papoon, again, County Councilor. This is one of Commissioner Dennis's appointments to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board. This is a joint board that we have with the City of Wichita to address the disability needs in our community. It's on the recommendation of Commissioner Dennis that we reappoint Brian Powers to this board and ask that you approve the resolution appointing Mr. Powers.
Okay, Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And I want to thank Brian for his service here over the last 4 years. And it is a pleasure to reappoint him to the Access Advisory Board. And I thank him very much for his service. It is a very important board. And I make a motion that we reappoint Brian Powers to the Access Advisory Board.
Okay, I'll second that. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howe.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. And you're present?
Good morning,
Seems
Commissioners. All right, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Wichita Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board, so help me God. Congratulations. Go ahead.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Dennis, for the reappointment. It's been an honor and a privilege for over 10 years now to serve on this board and to assist this body and the City Council in policy and in addressing the needs of persons with disabilities in our community. Thank you so much for the reappointment. I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, watch behind you too. Step up.
Okay, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business, item E, agreement between COMCARE and the City of Wichita for the co-responder project.
Okay. Good morning, Joan Tammany.
Got it. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Joan Tammany, Executive Director with COMCARE. Here with me this morning is Captain Jason Cooley with the Wichita Police Department, who I'll have come up later. Jen Wilson, the Director of Crisis Services, and Regina Hafner-Stout, who is our Program Manager who oversees our mobile crisis response activities at Crisis. This morning, I'm here to seek your approval to strategically partner with the City of Wichita and the Wichita Police Department to add 4 behavioral health master-level crisis clinicians and 4 integrated care specialists into the Wichita Police Department to better respond to 911 mental health calls. We've discussed this new, I'm sorry, I got to figure out how to advance the slides.
Joan, this may be where we have the technical challenges.
It's probably me is the technical challenge.
Okay, sorry, I jumped
What did you do?
left click, and I skipped to one of your slides.
So can I go back?
Yep, previous.
Oh, I was hitting those and they didn't go. Okay, sorry about that. We've discussed this new strategic partnership in multiple meetings with commissioners, and like me, I know that you guys are probably excited to be at this point in the implementation process. It's also no secret that the city budget for this ICT-1 expansion was approved by the City Council yesterday and was covered by all media outlets. This shows how welcome and how needed this is in our community. What was not discussed was the process that took us to this point. The city and Wichita Police Department were considering hiring their own behavioral health teams, but due to the strong relationships between the city and the county and COMCARE and Wichita Police Department, we navigated those tough questions and decided that the best way forward was to have a strategic partnership and work together, because COMCARE brings that behavioral health expertise, is also the gatekeeper to state hospitals and access to our crisis service continuum. So we're really excited to be at this point. As everyone knows, we initiated ICT-1 as a pilot program in 2019. It was a risk, and we knew that risk came with the potential for success or failure, and it was well received. And last year, the team responded to over 1,000 mobile crisis requests, with greater than 50% of those individuals served in place. That means there was no need for law enforcement time to transport to the hospital and did not result in an arrest, and immediate needs were addressed on the spot. I want to take a quick moment and do a shout out and advance this. a shout out to the ICT-1 leadership team here in Wichita and the county. A few days ago, our team was in Denver at the Bureau of Justice Assistance, Council for City Governments, Law Enforcement Knowledge Lab annual convening. Is that a mouthful or what? But the Wichita Police Department, in partnership with the county, received an award for being an ideal learning site. So we have people that come here and see what we're doing in terms of partnerships around mental health issues and the communications that we have. I'll have Regina speak to that later. But this was really a big deal, and you could see Malachi and Regina in that photo and the award that we'll house over at the Wichita Police Department. Really an exciting moment because, again, we don't get awards in behavioral health, so this is an acknowledgement of work well done over the years. We all know that crises do not occur in the crisis center or other convenient locations. They occur in our community. That's the beauty of mobile crisis response teams. We all envision this as an expansion of ICT-1, and the teams will be called ICT-2, 3, 4, and 5. Like ICT-1, the approach is one of an integrated team. In this instance, the behavioral health teams are comprised of a master-level mobile crisis clinician and an integrated care specialist who will be responsive to police officers for mental health calls. They will not be assigned to a specific officer, nor will the behavioral health team and the officers ride in a single vehicle, but rather the team will be available to all officers in the community. This, again, allows for significant additive value to ICT-1. This allows ICT-1 to manage the most imminent and high risk of the mobile crisis response calls when all three disciplines are needed to manage the scene. ICT-2, 3, 4, and 5 can be the next level of resource to our community, as it can have an armed officer component needed for safety and security of the scene for the behavioral health teams to do their magic, but it also allows us to collectively identify those that need follow-up and supports after the initial mental health crisis. And with the addition of the integrated care specialist, we have added a person who can help that person execute his or her safety plan and crisis plan and connect them to resources after that initial call. These two models, with the addition of the mobile crisis response teams out of our community crisis center, provide a nice continuum of options in our community, and they're designed to deliver the right response at the right time. Like ICT-1, data will be collected and tracked on the dashboard, similar to what is identified now for the ICT-1 dashboard. This will assist us in evaluating success and telling the story of value over time. The 4 teams will rotate shifts over the week to cover all hours between 8 a.m. and 2 a.m. each day. These times were identified based on call data and the greatest need times for this type of activity. We know that this is not 24/7, but gets us there with the addition of the COMCARE's mobile crisis response teams housed out of the crisis center. These teams will house out of the Wichita Police Department's Central Bureau. Included in that first-year budget are one-time operational costs that include the purchase of 3 vehicles and equipment like computers, et cetera, needed by the team to do their work in the field. Captain Cooley estimates that the first-year costs to be under $500,000 and provided the subsequent budget for future years. At this point, I would like to ask Captain Cooley to come forward and say a few words about the importance of this partnership.
Good morning.
Well, morning, Commission and Chair. I want to thank you. I'm Captain Cooley with the Wichita Police Department. I am the mental health liaison for our police department. So the importance of this was when we started looking at the data from ICT-1, and just in 22, the calls that we could track, there was over 1,000 calls for one unit to answer 4 days a week. It just wasn't sustainable. We're addressing multiple options to train the officers as fast as we can. However, when you start looking at the real needs of the community, it was obvious to us that a partnership, an expanded partnership with COMCARE was the obvious route to go. Their professionalism in the mental health business is just unmatched. There was nothing we could do to compare with that. So that's why we reached out and wanted to expand ICT into the other 4 units. So I'll be here if there's any questions from the forward.
Any questions? Thank you, sir, for addressing us. Oh, yeah, Ryan.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Chairman.
Beatty.
Captain Cooley, thanks for being here. Could you just give a little, what does this do to relieve pressure for law enforcement officers to have these co-responder models? What does that do for the department, for each individual officer? Why is this needed? I think it's important that people understand this.
Sure. So oftentimes the hospitals are full. They're at full capacity where we're able to take individuals who are needing mental health help. So the officers are left in the field trying to figure out, do we leave this individual at home? Do we take them to the hospital and sit with them for hours? Is there a family that can help? And, we're tying up 2, 3 officers oftentimes. We don't have the ability to come up with a plan for that individual to stay at home, let alone what's going to happen in the next hour and the next day, the follow-up for that individual. So this will alleviate the officers having to make those hard decisions that they're not trained to make in the field, as well as free them up to answer the more high-priority calls of violence in the community. And I'll also note that ICT-1 is responsible for a county response, and we quickly identified that Wichita was taking up the majority of ICT-1's response times. So we're hoping this will help us get ICT-1 into the other communities in the county.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, sir. And I think that was great comments. I know we evolved from the origination. I know Malachi was very important. I think he visited Colorado Springs and other cities that were doing similar things. And I was a little nervous when we rolled this out 5 years ago, but it really was cooperation of so many silos of government coming together. And I think the impact, Joan, you referenced it, but the impact, I know there's documentation on how much money is saved at the hospitals, the emergency room. You referenced your time and the avoidance of jail, and it's just a wonderful solution. And if 50% of those calls are handled the way you described, it's such a benefit for the community. So it's my personal thanks. And
Forgive me, Chairman.
that's right.
There's
So
another
thank you.
point I'd like some clarity on. COMCARE does mobile mental health. Could you explain the difference between what COMCARE does with their mobile mental health teams, maybe Joan or Jen, what we have, the capacity that we have now, and how that differs from these co-responder models?
I was going to invite Jen up to talk about that, so
Oh, there's your
go.
cue. That's
Jennifer Wilson, the Director of Crisis Services with COMCARE's Community Crisis Center. Thanks for having me. The real difference is our mobile crisis response team is housed at the Community Crisis Center and takes calls that come in from 988 and our 24/7 local crisis hotline. These teams will be housed at the Central Bureau with the Wichita Police Department and will be called and requested by law enforcement officers who are responding to calls who might involve mental health type crises, or behavioral health, I should say. So those are the two main differences between the two. They could work together though. So if we're having requests in our center or they're having requests from the police department and the teams aren't readily available, we can work together to help respond to ensure that people are getting served quickly and efficiently.
Well, I appreciate that clarity. I think it's important to understand as a community what we're doing, not just in behavioral health, but the mobile portion of what we're doing. I think the co-responder model is absolutely needed. I think every police officer, every law enforcement officer would tell you that this is a necessary thing, and they're thankful for the relief that comes with this. But I continue to appreciate what's going on at COMCARE, and we're leading nationally in many of the things that we're doing, and I'm excited to continue in that pursuit, to continue to evolve and to meet the needs of this community. So thank you guys for being here.
Well, you must be reading my mind because I was going to invite Regina up to talk about, how we are leading and what the award and what the Bureau of Justice Assistance Learning Site is.
Good morning, Regina Stout. I'm one of the program managers at the Community Crisis Center. And this week, both me and Lieutenant Keith Fort was invited to the Mental Health and Law Enforcement Learning Knowledge Lab, and we were recognized as one of 15 of the nation-leading co-responder models. We are a learning site, so we are inviting other individuals across the nation to come learn from us. But part of that piece is, as even as a learning site, as we are expanding our model within our community, we also have a community of other learning sites to ensure that we do the most evidence-based and innovative practices for our community. So I think that is a great piece of expanding for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with all that, I'm here to ask you approve the agreement and authorize the chairman to sign. We also ask that you authorize establishment of budget authority until the conclusion of the contract term and allow remaining balance at the end of each calendar year to be established for the next fiscal year. To authorize implementation of the staffing table changes identified in the personnel considerations section of this request. So with that, we stand for any additional questions or ask.
All right, Joan. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you guys for being here today. It's really exciting to be able to celebrate these victories with you because it is so important that we have even more of these units out on the streets. And thank you for letting me join you guys on Monday. I did a ride along with our crisis mobile unit, and it's so needed. And when we didn't have any calls that we went on, we did a lot of outreach and went and talked to different businesses and just explained that if you need help, but maybe you don't need a police officer to come, here's, the number that you can call. And to see so many people just respond to that so quickly and realize the needs that they have. And everybody we talked to was like, oh, we could have used you yesterday or the week before or, whatever that may be. So it's extremely important that we have these services, and I'm really appreciative that we can come together and collaborate in this way. And it shows the importance of those relationship building. This was also something that was a part of the task force recommendation, so I'm really happy that we're able to do this to help with completing some of those asks as well. So just thank you guys. Please thank Zach and Caitlin as well for letting me ride with them on Monday. Hopefully it wasn't too much to have a third person and asking all the questions and everything, but I definitely appreciated that time, and just gives me a better understanding of the day in and day out work that you guys do and just how important that is for our community. So thank you guys.
And I just want to shout out to the staff that do this work. It's not the average clinician that can do mobile crisis response. It's somebody who enjoys that unpredictability of arriving on a scene. It's a person who enjoys the unpredictability of knowing what their interventions are going to be because they don't know the individual. It takes a person who has a willingness to partner with law enforcement in a very strategic and different way. And it just takes the heart to do public service work. So anyway, shout out to those teams. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see other comments from the bench at this time, but I know we had Nick Reinecker come up to address earlier, but he wants to address on this topic. So, Nick, welcome again to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and commissioners, for allowing me to speak today. I'm from McPherson County, so I don't know the process here, but I have a packet of stuff for the commissioners if they want to take a look at them. I don't know if the clerk can hand them out. And I won't, if there's enough time later to go over what's in that packet, but I want to get to this here. My name is Nick Reinecker. I live at 504 South Maple, Inman, Kansas. And I do believe that there are lots of people here with compassionate reasons to do what they're doing. And the reason I'm here today is because Wichita, the way Wichita goes, so goes Kansas, I believe. And I want to voice my concern about the current policy trajectory involving public health and safety, current prohibition, and the rule of law. I have been intimately involved in state and local government in the areas of criminal justice, agriculture, insurance, and others. And for context, I would like to read you something Ronald Reagan said in his A Time for Choosing speech from October 27th, 1964. Admittedly, there is a risk in any course we follow, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And someday when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. Voices pleading for peace at any price, or better red than dead. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because these voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should patriots in Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all, and that answer is duty. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what is a behavioral health crisis other than anything we do without faith? The human condition dictates our need for a savior, and big G government is not it. This lack of faith tears down the fabric of family and freedom and prepares ourselves for chains of slavery, whether internally or with metal and bloodshed. We have seen people who do not let a crisis go to waste, who use them to grow and centralize government, like with ARPA money, which, when fully implemented, will eliminate the individual spirit and our country with it in an all-consuming fire where the need of the government to be worshipped like God. Our duty as citizens and your duty as representatives is to restrain that force through eternal vigilance and the reliance on the one and true providential and sovereign God until that time we are taken away into glory or allowed to pass the baton of liberty, which is freedom with morality, to our posterity. It is said you can't control the economy, but it is possible to control people through coercion and force. This policy trajectory currently being considered, along with House Bill 2021, in my opinion, is such a seed that has been planted under the guise of necessity, using the tax milking terms public health and safety, that is being left unchecked by a complicit and apathetic public who seem more interested in anything but keeping themselves, their children, and their government accountable. I'm growing a garden this year. I got scars on my legs and stuff from the bugs and everything. But it's sweat and toil and it's hard work, but it's good. I'm not sitting around with a screen thinking of Wall-E. So what are the unintended consequences of this action? Just because you can do something doesn't make it right, nor constitutional. For it wasn't long ago that the current accepted science for mental health issues was lobotomy. With our own history of eugenics program aimed to eliminate undesirable traits from the human race, where are we going with this? I believe, we talk about gun confiscation, red flag laws, and I think in the end, this could be another form of the final solution that's waiting in the wings. In the final analysis, this may be just a formality to you, but nonetheless, I can only hope that something I've said today would at least cause you to question the actions on the table today, if not to outright reject it. In my packet, I put the beginnings of House Bill 2021, and I highlighted the section concerning SINK kids, children who have been identified as exhibiting behavior that could lead to juvenile offender charges relating to physical violence, aggression, damage to property, or use of life-threatening drugs. What child doesn't fit that anyway? Second page is the oppositional defiance disorder criteria list. Again, what child does not fit some of those? We want to put all the children on some high-powered synthetic medication and have them do therapy. The next page, FDA about aspartame and other sweeteners, life-threatening drugs in our food that are FDA approved. Sucralose, a study on sucralose and how it changes our DNA, even though it's approved. And then the rule of law when it comes to the prohibition of cannabis. There's a deal in the very last warning for 82-year-old German convicted of dealing drugs. If there's crime happening, we need to deal with the crime and stop calling it all this other stuff, in my opinion. I know there's experts that are going to go against me, but in the back is the communist goals that was presented in the congressional record, and specifically 2032. Does it support any? I'm sorry, 38 and 39. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. 39, dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals.
Okay, Mr.
Commissioners,
Reiniger.
thank you for allowing me to speak today, and I will stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Howe, comment.
This is not really a question for Mr. Reiniger. I just wanted to comment back. I was trying to think where I saw you before. I know where it was. It was at the bill hearing on House Bill 2021. And I have spent a number of years trying to push this bill forward. I have been a strong advocate, primarily because of Senate Bill 367. I hope you're aware of what 367 is all about and what happened to our state as a consequence of that. I speak on behalf of a frustrated system of corrections. I know there's people in corrections officers, there's judges, prosecutors, police officers, law enforcement officers, all kinds of people who are involved in juvenile justice. And they would tell you that they can find a child, this is true, and you can talk to experts I just named, that you can find a 14-year-old in a stolen car with a gun at 4 o'clock in the morning and nothing happens. There's no consequences for bad behavior. We have conflated the issues of SINC children and children in need of care and juvenile offender children. The lines have been blurred entirely to the detriment of SINC children. So we had 7, well, the bill wasn't what I wanted at the end of the day, but it was better than nothing. So there were 7 provisions left in the bill that I think all of them were positive. I agree with you to an extent that the problem is really not the Band-Aid we're applying at that moment. There's a problem that happened maybe years, long time before that, as that child was being raised in their particular home. But at the end of the day, we, the government, not the big capital G government, but the government is doing their very best to deal with these issues as they come to us. And to do nothing, which is what 367 implies, is do nothing, is not working. So if you care about these kids, you want to get on a better path, we have to do something. And House Bill 2021 was the best we could do this year. It's not everything I wanted. It's probably not everything that the people I named would want, but it's certainly a big step in the right direction. And I fought like crazy to get this bill to pass, and it passed at the very, very end of the session. We had almost unanimous support in the House. We had a very dicey vote in the Senate, which was very unusual. But at the end of the day, it did pass, and the governor did sign the bill. So I'm very thankful we were able to be successful. Had it not been for our lobbyists, our staff, and Sedgwick County specifically, this bill would not have passed. So anyway, I appreciate you taking time to come to us today, but House Bill 2021 has very little to do with anything with the ICT resolution in front of us today. We have a mental health problem in Sedgwick County. And a lot of these are children. I go back to the Cedric Lofton case. One of the problems we had with Cedric Lofton was that at the time he had his crisis, there was no ICT-1 on the clock. And had they been on the clock, we might have had an entirely different outcome. So I think the expanding COMCARE, the mobile mental health crisis reach out there in the community is certainly a step in the right direction. It's not the perfect solution. Maybe the solution is spiritual, but we have to put the Band-Aids on where we can, because that's all we can do. So I appreciate this before us today. It's important that we go forward. It's not the perfect solution, but to do nothing is certainly not an answer. So thank you for the chance to speak. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank our police officers, COMCARE, everyone that's been involved in this, and especially the city of Wichita, who are our partners in this idea of expanding ICT. I've been on the commission now for a little over 6 years, and I've seen a growing issue involving mental health. It's one of the main things that we focus on as commissioners day in and day out, are the crisis that we're facing here with people that have mental health issues, drug abuse issues, alcohol abuse issues. The fentanyl crisis is amazing right now. And the solution isn't just to lock all these people up. We have to meet them where they're at and try and find out what we can do to resolve whatever issues that they have. And if we can do that without taking them and arresting them, or taking them and taking 2 or 3 of the officers over to the hospital into a mental health crisis situation, that's what we're looking at, is to try and resolve this on the spot and see how that we can move forward with these individuals and take care of the issue that they have at hand. So I applaud the city of Wichita for funding this program. We are going to be providing mental health professionals to be able to be available to ride along or to be dispatched with the police officers so that we can resolve it on the spot and not have to either take them to jail, take them over to the COMCARE Crisis Center, or to take them to the emergency room to be treated where that we're tying up a lot of resources. So I think this is a great opportunity for us, and I'll be voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Chairman, for the chance to speak a second time. And Mr. Reinecker, I would love to speak with you privately at another date, maybe next week or next month. We can get together and talk a little bit more about this. I appreciate that chance. But I do have a couple questions about the resolution today, and a couple of these things. What's not clear to me. Normally, when we partner with Wichita, normally there's a financial split of some sort, and I don't see in this. And the background information here is what is the financial split, if any? I mean, I understand they're providing vehicles, and I'm not sure exactly who's paying for exactly what, because it's not really very clear to me. Can someone please help me understand that?
Yeah, so the city of Wichita is providing all the financial liability for the expansion of the program. That's what the council approved yesterday. The financial part of it came from county finance, how much each staff member cost, how much vehicles cost. All those things will be provided by COMCARE and then reimbursed by the city.
Okay, and then so the entire cost of this particular program expansion is being handled by Wichita.
Yep, all the way down to cell phones.
Very good, and that's good to hear that. I know the ICT-1 vehicle, the little red vehicle I've seen all the pictures, it was totaled at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand they're using some other vehicle for that response. Does it look like the other vehicle at all?
Yeah. Yes.
It does?
Yes.
Again, I'll just share with a couple of concerns I have. I think that, stigma that comes with mental illness, if someone comes to my home and the bright red vehicle that says ICT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll be embarrassed in front of my neighbors that vehicle came to my home. I would encourage us to not make it look that way. It should be a plain Jane vehicle. I just think that in terms of stigma, please don't make it look like that. I think that we owe it to our people to respect them, not to embarrass them, because that actually adds to their stress that they're dealing with right then. And I think that the Cahoots program that's up in, I think, Oregon, the people that respond they don't look like police officers. I've seen pictures of our response team. They look like LEOs, and they look like government people, and again, that also adds stress. So I think anything you can do to calm down the situation is a step in the right direction. So I think that what the uniforms they wear, the way that they appear when they come, I think is important. So as we're reinventing the program slightly here, I think I made these comments years ago, and I got laughed at by a lot of people. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make it the same comment again, and people can disregard it once again if they want to, but I think it's important. Also, the numbers have gotten better. I've looked at some of the response numbers, and I have complained that this program has not been very effective because they only treated in place about one per day with a team of 3 people, 4 days a week. They were only doing about 3 plus, maybe 3 to 4 treat in place patients per day. It has gotten better. So I want to continue to challenge us to find ways to become more effective and efficient. I do think that this is desperately needed in this community. I support what's before us today. I'm glad to vote yes, and I'm thankful for Wichita's investment in this. I appreciate what they are doing, and I'm glad to have this in front of us today. If there's anything we can do to make this more efficient and effective, I think that's a discussion we have to continue to have. So that's all my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I will say that the van has been a topic prior to this. That's provided by another entity. That's why it looks that way. But we have had those discussions on what's the new unit going to look like and how is it going to be different. So we have addressed that as well as what they're going to wear. We've had those discussions. So we are aware of your concerns, and you're not alone. We have heard those. So.
And sir, know that's one commissioner that is asking Commissioner Howell has his feelings about that, and he's expressed that before. The body of what you're doing with the whole team, the body of the county commission, the body of the city council is basically the rule of the day as it gets to whatever your recommendations are. But we've listened, and Commissioner Howell does have strong feelings about that. I'm not sure that that's in agreement with the body and the majority of the commission, but out of respect, thanks for listening to what he expressed. And with that, I don't see any other comments. So I'm going to make a recommendation. We approve the agreement and authorize the chairman to sign, authorize establishment of budget authority until the conclusion of the contract term, allowing for the remaining balance at the end of each calendar year to be established in the next fiscal year, and authorize implementation of the staffing table changes identified in the personnel consideration section of this request.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody, for all their hard work. Okay. Next item, please.
Item F, update on the American Rescue Plan Act, spend plan.
Okay. And all right. Good morning, Lindsay Poe Rousseau.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lindsay Poe Rousseau, your Chief Financial Officer. Hopefully today, third time is the charm on the ARPA spending plan. I do want to take just a quick moment to acknowledge some folks we have here in the audience with us today. Obviously, I want to thank Brent Shelton, our Deputy CFO, and Anissa Red, our grant analyst, who are here for doing a lot of the legwork on all things ARPA. Also want to thank our colleagues from PPMC who are here, who do the Recovery Connect program, which we'll spend a little time talking about today. Misty Bruckner, Dulcinea Rakestraw, and Kate Young. And then I also understand we have some community partners here with us today, folks from Empower and WSU Tech. So my thanks to them for being here. We don't necessarily have planned comments from them, but they will certainly be on hand to answer questions as we move through this presentation. So we're going to jump right into it. You do have a packet at your seats, hopefully. The first couple pages are just the PowerPoint that we'll go through today. As in the past, we have a more detailed spending plan. This is what we end up posting out on the county's website for availability through our ARPA plan, so that folks can see precisely how much we have already spent toward projects, as well as what we anticipate spending through the life of ARPA. And then there is some supplemental information from Recovery Connect, following up from conversation that we had at our last meeting 5 weeks ago, where we presented this plan. So for the conversation today, I really only want to focus on the changes, because we have had a lot of conversation on the ARPA spend plan since February, although we are more than happy to get in any of the details on any of these projects if you would like to do so. So at the last commission meeting, the request for our Recovery Connect program, which again is our Community Navigator program, was to really focus in the efforts on workforce, on nonprofits, and on daycare, because those are, I think, heads and shoulders in terms of priorities and needs that we've heard from the community. We have, and I know commissioners certainly have. So PPMC was able to take that feedback and also meet with you all individually to give some updates on what that would look like to frame that focus a little more. And so what you'll see now is that for 2023, there is a reduction of roughly $92,000 in the budget for the Recovery Connect program. And again, this is something where we are billed for services rendered, not necessarily just cutting a check, because of all of the rules that we all know come with ARPA. The result is that the CIP contingency has increased by an equivalent amount to $13.5 million. So your overall 2023 ARPA budget has not changed. It still sits at about $46.3 million. However, you can see $13.5 million of that sits in CIP contingency. We do have another $500,000 in contingency, but that is for COVID surge issues. For 2024, that Recovery Connect program is $250,000. That had actually been included in the version about 5 weeks ago, but how that actually works has changed in terms of limiting scope and what exactly is funded through the course of 2024 for this program. So your 2024 budget sits at about $15.7 million, but again, anything that is unspent from contingency in 2023 would plan to be rolled forward. And again, for now, the commission retains complete control over that contingency. It may not be accessed without your permission. So we received a total of $100.2 million in 2 allocations between 2021 and 2022. This is the full and total amount of that plan allocated by program, high-level program summary. Now, all of this, of course, is broken into individual details on your project plan, so you can see all of the specifics. For example, our largest bucket is court backlog and public safety, and you can see how that breaks down by function in that very detailed spend plan in your packet. So I apologize, the recommended action in your agenda says that today's item is to receive and file. I actually would ask instead that you approve this plan, and I apologize for my error in not getting that updated. Happy to answer any questions. I'm confident there will be some. Like I said, we have some great subject matter experts in the room who are here to help us. So if you'd like to call them up, we can do that, or I'm happy to try to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. I know we've been through a lot on this and appreciate the big picture of $100 million and the discussion about all the various $40 million to help improve the backlog in the public safety in the courts, which was huge. So 40 million down to 500,000 items. So it's good. Thanks for this deal. Commissioner Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Lindsay, thanks for the update. We've been following this very diligently, and I appreciate all the time and effort that's been put into it. A couple questions real quick, and then I'll make a statement. From what I recall, and make sure that my number is right, if we had the monies left at the end of 2024, we could roll 40 million, as I recall, over into the general fund. Is that the right number or not?
So we are actually completing our audit in the next week and a half, and that number will increase. But through the way the federal government allows us to compute lost revenue, through 2021, based on that computation, it said that we had lost $40 million worth of revenue. So we can't necessarily technically roll it into the general fund, but what we can do is move funds for traditional government services out of the general fund and into ARPA. So that would free up cash within the general fund. So for example, if we wanted to move, to me the simplest thing would be something like a sheriff salaries. We could move that from the county's general fund and into ARPA, which would then free up that amount of general fund cash to either be carried forward or used for some other purpose.
Okay, but in reality, with the spending plan you have put together, it's a little over 5 million that we could roll over at the end of 2024, right?
I think so. Right now, that CIP contingency plus the COVID surge contingency, roughly 14 million, depending on how we access that, would be potentially available for revenue replacement. Although I continue, as you'll see with a project that's going to be on your CIP or on your agenda next week for a CIP, we've seen a cost of a project triple. And so we'll be talking to that about next week. So I continue to be wary of what we'll see for the CIP projects that are in this plan. So that's the maximum, but I'm not counting on it.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. My concern, and I've stated it several times, so everybody's pretty familiar with it, so I'm not going to dwell on it too long. But the pandemic is over. We're not in a pandemic today. So we have to be very good stewards of the funding that we have left.
Sure.
This money, some people may think was free money. It's not free money. It contributed to the $31 trillion in debt that we have currently at the federal government that our great-great-grandchildren are going to be paying off in the future. So every cent that we can save to help our local taxpayers not have to incur debt or incur any kind of expense through the county is very important to me.
Understood.
So I want to make sure that we can have as much money as possible in our general fund so that we don't have to draw it out of the general fund for all of the things we got coming up. And remember, I just made a quick list while you were chatting. We've got a COMCARE crisis center that we want to put someplace. That's about $15 million last I recall. Elections office came to us the other day. We do have in a CIP $3 million, I think, for an election office, and then we just looked at what they were asking for in the budget. It's a little more than $2 million above what they had been getting in the past, just for 2024. Public Works wants a new hazmat or an expanded hazmat facility. I don't recall off the top of my head how many $1 million that is. Corrections, we just got briefed, wants $22 million in order to expand, or actually tear down what we've got for the juvenile facility and build a brand new juvenile facility. We're in a rented facility here today, and we're spending about $1 million a year to rent this facility. And we're still groping, trying to find out what we're going to do for a permanent facility, and it's going to be $40 million. Possibly in the future. Emergency management has talked to us because they need a new facility in order to be able to store all the PPE for the future. And we've been working trying to get grants on that, but it will still cost us millions of dollars there. So my concern is we've got a whole lot of debt coming up. And I want to minimize the amount of funding that goes from general fund to do all of these projects, because every single thing I mentioned is worthy, and we need to do it. But it's putting the burden on our local taxpayers, and if we could use some money that came down to add to this $31 trillion debt to help offset what our local taxpayers are paying, that's important to me. So I look at Recovery Connect, and we put it in place during the pandemic, and I think it was the right thing to do, or I wouldn't have voted for it. But now the pandemic is over, and I don't know that we're getting the bang for the buck. And anything that we put money into, normally we have a cost-benefit analysis done, and I don't know what the cost-benefit analysis has been done on this, on what is our return on investment. How many dollars are we getting back in the community for investing? It'll be over, well over $1 million for this. So that's my concern. I think that there are better places to put this funding right now since the pandemic is over than in Recovery Connect. And I want to make sure that we can put as much into the general fund to reduce the burden on our local taxpayers. So that's why I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Beatty.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Lindsay, for the presentation. And we've had a robust conversation on the back end, and that's the way it should be done, frankly. Commissioner Dennis and I have some significant agreement on some of these things, and I'm thankful for the process to be able to come in, sit down, and visit with my colleagues, with staff, with those from Wichita State Public Policy and Management, Recovery Connect, to really work through these things. I'm going to be in favor of this, and the reason I'm going to be in favor of this is because for several reasons. One is I do agree that although we're on the backside of a pandemic, is that the effects of the pandemic are still very much existent in our community today. As someone who owns companies that were deemed non-essential through this pandemic, I'm still, in my own personal life, my own personal companies are still dealing and reeling with some of these issues. I've also seen in my own district organizations that have taken advantage of this Recovery Connect opportunity and has done significant things with those dollars. I know it's difficult sometimes to quantify some of these return on investments, but we can certainly qualify it, and we can see it in the impact that it's having in people's lives. So I'm grateful that I serve with colleagues and grateful that I serve with staff that are good stewards. And I'm grateful that we have a county that is in good financial condition because of those things. But ARPA was designed to be front-facing. And this is the only front-facing program that we have at the county utilizing these dollars. It was the county's idea. It was the previous BOCC's idea to establish this program through an RFP. And I'm in favor of seeing it through because I am seeing, in my district in particular, I'm seeing the impact that it's having in our communities. So I appreciate the robust conversation, but I will be in favor of this.
Okay. thank you for the comments, and I don't see any other comments, so I will make a motion that we approve the Recovery Connect, not the Recovery Connect, the American Rescue Plan Act update and the budget as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Don't see any other comments. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
No.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, WSU, for being here, and we look for brighter things and bigger and brighter things. It is kind of ending. The pandemic is ending, and so 24 or 23, what year we're in? Anyway, it'll all be coming to a close, so, okay, thanks for your work. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item G, Capital Improvement Program Amendment for CIP Preparedness Center.
Good
Morning,
morning,
Andrew.
Chairman and Commissioners. Andrew
Yeah.
Diltz, Director of Facilities, here to present the CIP amendment for Emergency Preparedness Center. And right off the bat, before I get started here, I do have a small correction on the dollar figure on the staff report was incorrect, and it is updated in this PowerPoint at the end.
Okay, thank you.
On April 4th, Rusty Leeds provided an in-depth look at this project, so I'll recap some of the highlights to keep this brief. The 911 call center is outgrowing their space. They currently reside in the Public Safety Building along with Emergency Management. This building was designed to withstand a number of elements, and expanding the facility with additions is not recommended. We have sacrificed other areas of the building to make room for additional staff. However, the call center will soon require the entire facility for their operation, and displacing the staff for emergency management. The current storage for emergency management is the Rounds and Porter facility owned by the city. During COVID-19, we were not prepared to receive, store, and distribute PPE or other vital items to the local hospitals. Our own public safety response teams like police, fire, sheriff, and EMS staff, as well as the public. We utilized a number of facilities, including the Interest Bank Arena, until finally landing at Rounds and Porter. We had a number of testing and vaccine sites, to include the Health Department of West Central, Wichita Transit, Interest Bank Arena, the Armory at 620 North Edgemore, the Old Downtown Library, and the Harry Street Mall. Each location took critical resources away from the public as we focused on relocating operations. To better serve the local hospitals, emergency response personnel, and the public, we considered constructing a facility across the street from the Health Department on East 9th. This location does not have enough space for emergency management and will significantly impact the amount of parking available for Health Department operations. In 2022, the Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant became available and would allow the county to construct a facility bringing together our public health response from the Health Department as well as the emergency management operations. The county applied for the grant last year but was not successful. We have another opportunity to apply this year with a grant deadline of June 23rd. Our plan has been slightly tweaked from last year, and we are working to better position ourselves for award with this CIP amendment. Taking our knowledge of what worked and what didn't work at each location we used during COVID-19, staff developed a floor plan with an on-call architect that combines the three major operations deployed in a public emergency for not just COVID-19, but any emergency response. Those operations include a warehouse function, the Emergency Operations Center, and the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Facility for a combined building total of 26,717 square feet. There are three distinct areas of the building, including five vehicle bays that can be used to vaccinate or test mass volumes of the public. We have a warehouse function of receiving, storing, and distributing a 90-day supply of PPE for emergency response teams, as well as disaster response equipment, medicines, and more. And then we have an administrative area with classroom and training capabilities, and a portion of this building will be FEMA rated to withstand a weather event. Here's an aerial view of the rendering of the proposed facility. You can see the traffic, the five vehicle bays are on the left side of that building here, and we would have 5 vehicle bays with traffic staged around the facility to try to maintain so we don't block or interfere with the adjacent roads. Here's a floor plan of the layout. The portion here in yellow would be the FEMA rated structure. Here are the 5 vehicle bays. The rest of this is warehouse space and administrative offices and functions. Here's a rendering of an elevation view of the same structure. At the conclusion of the April 4th staff meeting, where we had commission support to proceed pursuing grant funding and a land purchase, we refreshed the floor plan and budget, then submitted the CIP amendment to the CIP committee following our policy. Our next step for the Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant is to identify and purchase land so we are construction ready. The land purchase can potentially go towards our county cost share portion of 30%, but only if we purchase the land prior to award and at a fair market value. If we purchase the land after receiving award, it will not count as part of our cost share. Being construction ready and having the land purchased may have a large influence on whether we receive the grant. It makes up 30 out of 100 points when our application is scored. Our project total is $15,843,686, and the grant application will come before you at the June 21st commission meeting. Rusty, Tim, Tanya, and others are in the audience if you have questions, and I recommend approving the CIP amendment.
Okay, Andrew, thank you. So what we're talking about, to summarize for us and the public, is a grant application to fund just south of a $16 million project, of which we would be 30% in our CIP, which would be for south of $5 million.
Correct.
And I'm sure that we all struggled during that time. We did use multiple facilities, and we scrambled. And consistent with this community, we had buildings being volunteered for us to use, and it was a crazy time between storage and vaccine and all the things we did. So you did a nice job summarizing all those facilities. For us to duplicate all those facilities is probably more than 15 million, that's for sure. Question is the next crisis that happened 99 years ago, and then it hit us in 2019. Are we building something for 99 years again from now? But
and if I may add,
sure.
This is also solving an issue that's up and coming with the call center having to expand, and we don't have anywhere else for them to go at 911.
The 911 building. So it does.
Yep.
So that would be a challenge for this commission and us in the near future to replace or so allow the 911 facility to be expanded. So I'm kind of repeating a little bit. Thanks for this information. It's as much for me and us as it is for the public to understand what we're considering here. So probably a question or two. Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And Andrew, thank you very much for the update. And I just want to congratulate all of the facilities folks that worked over the last several years, especially during the pandemic, because as you summarized, we were scrambling every single day, and we were moving from one location to another, trying to find facilities in order to be able to accommodate the pandemic. We started out with a tent over behind the health department. We moved out to an old armory at one point. We moved over to the bus barn. We moved over to the Intrust Bank Arena. We moved over to the old library. And facilities every step of the way was trying to find these locations. In addition, we didn't have any place to store tons and tons of PPE that we were getting in. So those that had a chance to look at the floor of the Intrust Bank Arena, because it was closed, we couldn't hold any shows there. The entire floor of the Intrust Bank Arena was solid PPE that we were giving free of charge to the community. So I just want to, first of all, thank our folks in facilities for making that happen. That was a huge lift for everyone. And I don't want to single out just facilities, because the health department was involved in emergency management, our finance department. We had a ton of people that was involved in every step of the way. So congratulations on where we were at. And what this does now is it provides us one place that we don't have to jump through all these hoops in the future. If we have to have drive-through immunizations or drive-through testing or any of the other things that happen, it gives us the ability to do that. It gives us the ability to store PPE. We've got a plan so that you cycle that PPE out over to our health department and over to EMS and so forth, so it doesn't sit in there and we have to throw it away after that it goes beyond usable life. So we've got a plan for every step of the way. The biggest thing of this grant that you're asking us to approve is it's a DOD grant, okay? And remember, we have one of the largest bases in the Air Force here in Sedgwick County. We've got McConnell Air Force Base. We have 3 wings at McConnell Air Force Base. In the time I spent in the military, it was very unusual to even have 2 wings, and we have 3 major wings sitting here. And if there's a disaster or anything that happens, they're going to help us and we're going to help them. It's a cooperative effort. So in order for us to be able to get this DOD grant, a year ago, I talked to Colonel Vogel, the wing commander of the 22nd, because the 22nd is the host wing for the entire base. Out of the 3 wings, that is the host wing. And he signed a letter for us to submit with our grant. Because without that signature, we're not going to get the grant. It has to show that it applies to the Department of Defense if we're going to get a DOD grant. Our issue right now is that Friday, we're going to go to change command Friday morning, and Colonel Vogel is leaving, and I know him. So we've got to get the signature of Colonel Corey Damon on the new grant application. So I've already talked to Colonel Vogel last week, told him that we're going to be coming back. Please let Colonel Damon know that he doesn't know me, but I'm going to be asking for his signature, and he said that he would help us make sure that we get that signature, because without that, all this effort that we're going through is going to not come to fruition. So I thank also McConnell Air Force Base for their support of helping us with the future. So at the appropriate time, when everyone's had the chance to ask their questions, I'd be very happy to make a motion that we approve this CIP amendment. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Commissioner Dennis, for your work before and currently. So it's comforting to know that you're already planting the seed for another signature of endorsement. So thank you for your work on that. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick questions. The public safety building we have right now, when was that? When was ribbon cut on that?
It was built around 2007.
Yeah, that's what I have, about 16 years ago. And the 911 center that's in that facility is actually newer than that, I believe. And we've been remodeling that and improving that. So I want to make sure people understand that.
Yep, it is currently under remodel right now. I believe substantial completion is next month, with the final completion in August. And that is expanding to allow for more, Alora and her team to have more staff.
And so, again, I know that 911's been challenged in the community a little bit about whether we've invested in the 911. I think we have. We have a backup facility which can handle all of the calls at Innovation Campus at WSU at the Law Enforcement Training Center. That's true. Is that correct?
I can't speak to how efficient that location, that site is compared to their normal daily operation at the public safety building. But they're currently operating out of that backup site.
We've had to use that backup here and there. It has done a good job. So we've invested in that as well. And that's also a newer facility. And so I want people to realize our 911 is we have invested a huge amount of money to modernize and to expand as needed the 911 resources that we have here.
Correct. We've also purchased some parking lots, and we're going to invest in secure parking for 911 as well.
I think this is an important part of the story. And it does sound like, again, 911 needs more space again, even though everything we've got on the table right now, that's not going to be enough going forward. So this does make sense to have a new facility for for the public safety building. I do agree with that part. I don't know that I agree with everything that's been presented this morning, but I guess my question is this: the CIP amendment today, it actually sets us up for the land purchase and for the grant application.
That is
and
correct.
In terms of future decision on what we build, if we get the grant, what we've been presented, I think is probably a great plan. But if we don't receive that grant, then we have options of we can pare it down if we need to or whatever. We are committing essentially to building something as a new public safety building. I think that's what I see before us. But in terms of this exact plan and this exact dollar, that's somewhat contingent upon the grant being approved.
Correct.
Okay. To me, that's a good point to be noted here. So that's great. So I'll be glad to support the as it presented this morning. Thank you again.
Okay. Andrew, thanks for your work and everybody, the whole team. When you were talking and David Dennis was talking about all the buildings, and I was reminded that we kind of last minute worked, begged originally, but worked with the city to get the public library. And that building was pretty much ready for the future of destruction. But I think there's so many citizens walked through that building and thought how great it was that building now is it's got some kind of a value emphasis to the community. So who knows what happens in these crises. But with that, any other comments? If none, I'll make a motion that we approve the CIP amendment as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez. Aye. Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item H, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts, regular meeting on June 1st, 2023.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Lee Barrier with the Purchasing Department.
Good morning, Lee.
Good morning. The regular meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts of June 1st, 2023 resulted in one item which we are asking for you to approve. That item is a gas chromatography nitrogen phosphorus detector for the Regional Forensic Science Center. We recommend that you accept the quote from Agilent Technologies in the amount of $57,279.66. And I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you may have and recommend approval of this item.
Okay, are there any questions about that? I saw Dr. Shelley Stedman was in the audience, so thank you. We continue to want to, from my perspective, we want to help support your operation, and this sounds like a good purchase for this. So any other questions? I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you again. Next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Mr. Manager.
Good morning, Chairman, Commission, Tom Stoltz, County Manager's Office. Recommend approval of consent items I through Y this morning, with the exception of item R, which we'd like to discuss.
Okay. Any questions on, I'll make a motion to approve consent items I through Y, with the exception of item R. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez. Aye. Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell. Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Manager, item R.
Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. Item R is policy number 1.105, which is a recommendation for at-large advisory board appointments. As you recall, a month and a half ago, we rescinded the old policy regarding advisory board appointments. And Justin Wagner is going to come to the podium and kind of give you a before and after look at the old policy and what we're trying to aspire to get to with the new policy. While he's coming to the podium, I want to just kind of give some overall data here. The county currently has 33 advisory boards on the website. there are over 315 advisory board members that work on your behalf, on the commission's behalf, and serve as conduits in the community on everything from plumbing to HVAC to animal control to mental health. We have a myriad of advisory boards. Of all of those 300-plus appointments, 64 of them are what we term at-large appointments, where the commission as a body has to make an appointment. That it's for those 64 positions that this policy is in existence to give guidelines to staff, including the executive secretary staff in your office, staff in the manager's realm, and then ultimately to the commission as a guideline to handle this fairly and ethically and as transparently as possible. So I want Justin, I'll kind of tag team this, but I want Justin to kind of talk about the old policy, new policy, and what the main differences are for the commission to be aware of.
Okay, thanks for that summary. Those are large numbers, 33 advisory boards and 315 members total.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Justin Wagner, Deputy County Counselor. I just handed out, it would have been the 2019 resolution that enacted the former version of this policy. Just for reference, Tom had wanted me to kind of summarize the overarching changes. I'm not going to go through every change in terms of, there's a lot of minor technical language changes, but there's probably a couple, really 2 or 3. The biggest one would be, if you look at the former policy, it'd be page 3 of that. Towards the bottom of that, the former policy would have the appointments being discussed typically in a Board of County Commissioners staff meeting. And it's been modified now to where the applications would be received and the department head would make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, like your other agenda items where staff has a recommendation. So that change has been made. And so instead of discussing each of those appointments, every applicant for a position, there would be a staff recommendation that would be brought forward to you. Also, one of the other changes, I think on page 2 of that old policy, it was former section 5 about considerations for at-large appointments. That language had been removed in this, but I mean, I don't think there's anything in that wouldn't be undertaken by staff at this point. Otherwise, I think it's more or less, that it's going to be posting the positions the same way as the old policy in terms of putting them out on social media, allowing people to apply for these positions. And we didn't really have that before 2019 policy was adopted. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have on the differences between the two.
Okay, thank you, Justin, for showing.
Chairman, I might just add in. So, as Justin pointed out, a significant shift in 2019 was we brought strategic communications into the formula. So now, and that continues through this policy too. Number one is the county is going to be transparent with the openings of these positions. We're going to broadcast that to the community so the community at large can see that and apply if they want to. So there's a formal application process which rolls through ultimately your staff. Your 2 executive secretaries are the recipients of that application. Then they correspond to the department that are impacted by it, be it mental health or whatever the advisory board topic is. Then commissioners are aware of all applicants, so they get to see all the names, and then the staff will come back and make a recommendation in an open meeting. So we're trying to be as fair and inclusive as we can, as transparent as we can, and bring that forward to open up the boards to all the community. So that was the philosophy back in 2019. It's still the philosophy with this policy. It just is a few minor tweaks, as Justin has pointed out.
Right. And is it fair to say that, before 2019, there wasn't a policy that put in place to allow the public to know, to be available to? Before, it was everything before 2019, before we did this. It wasn't advertised as a public opportunity to make a application for any of these board positions.
Correct.
So we kind of formalized that to be open and transparent to the whole community if they're interested in any one of these.
This policy also attempts to delineate what it is we're looking for in an advisory board, and it's listed under item F: skills and qualifications, bona fide interest in the position. These are all unpaid positions. Not a single one of these is paid. These are volunteers from the community. So we want bona fide interest in the position and any special requirements called for by the advisory board. For example, a number of them are by job status, like the chief of police is on a few boards because he's not nominated or elected, it's just because of his positional authority. Some boards require race and gender diversity. So those are all requirements that the department head who is trying to give you a recommendation, and ultimately the commission makes a decision, have to take into account before they name a board member.
Okay. That help explain the background and then what we're trying to do to, and this policy is again about the at-large positions.
Yes,
And so-
there's hundreds of positions where you as commissioners have individual authority.
Correct.
To name those. You don't have to vet it with anybody. You don't have to consult with staff. It is your appointment as an elected body. And I use your cabs as an example. You select those on your own. And there's the majority of these advisory board appointments are that way, where you as individual commissioners have your selection.
Right. And
This does not address
so the
that.
citizens advisory boards are individually selected, but again, they're all presented to the board to vote in favor and support the individual commissioner's recommendation on a board appointment that they have.
It is
still has
a
to be
rare
approved.
BOCC meeting where you will not see some type of appointment action. We had 3 today, for example. It's
Right,
just- it's
exactly.
we have so many, it's constantly moving.
Right. Okay. Okay. So that's the background and the explanation. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. I have just a couple questions. So when people apply for these positions, is their application a public document?
You raised a good question, and I'm trying to recall when we've had Open Records Act requests for those documents. I mean, it would be a public document, whether it be subject to disclosure or not. It would have to be analyzed under the Kansas Open Records Act. I believe that the public would be able to get those, but we would have to field those as those requests came in. I know it's not an employment position, certainly, so I think it probably is considered an open record.
So you differentiate between an employment position and a board member application. One is an employment position protected by COMA, or CORA, I should say.
Correct.
And this is something that would be outside of employment, so it would probably.
Yeah, I believe if we had a request for that, we would probably provide that. I defer if Mike Papoon has any different recollection on how we would handle that under the Open Records Act.
Commissioner Mike Papoon, County Councilor. No, Justin, I think you pretty much nailed it. This is not an employment situation. Under CORA, we don't have to give out information for employment candidates, but I can't think of anything under the Open Records Act that would keep this from being disclosed.
So if someone in the community wanted to know who applied for a position and read about them and even maybe weigh in, through public comment or whatever, they would have the opportunity to do that. We don't necessarily post these online, but the information would be available through a records request.
I think that's correct. If they requested it and would receive it, I think that's something they could do.
Typically, our CAB boards meet once a month. When the position closes, I don't know how much time typically passes between the closure of that position being posted versus when it comes to the BOCC for adopting, I guess, adopting a recommendation from staff. It's probably probably less than a month, I would assume.
Yes, it'd be less than 30 days. It should just be a week or 2.
So like even going to CAB boards and asking them to weigh in on these positions is probably not realistic, I don't think. Also, when staff brings us a recommendation, we have the information to know who all applied, and we understand their rationale for making a recommendation. They usually provide that to us.
True. Yeah.
And if we disagree, we could certainly have a debate on the bench here. I don't think we have to follow the recommended action. We can do whatever we want.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So in terms of being secret, I don't know if anybody's interested in this or not. Someone wrote us on the public comment last night, and I'm willing to read this. I don't know if it matters to anybody. But there are some terms and some words in this that I am a little bit alarmed that maybe someone would accuse us of being secret and not transparent, and I'm a little concerned about that narrative. I think that my colleagues as well, but I can tell you that I have been a champion for transparency in government, and doing things in the light and doing things in a way that's understandable to the public, that they have access to all the information they have a right to. And so I don't like the accusations of things being done secretly. I don't know if you guys would entertain me to take about 2 or 3 minutes to read this. Would that be acceptable to anybody? Mr. Chairman, is it all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we received this for
This is-
public comment last night.
Yeah, this is last night. One of the 2 emails.
One of the 2, and I'll read this. Came in through the communications email. It said, "Dear Commissioners and County Manager Tom Stoltz, at the agenda meeting last Friday, it was announced by County Manager Tom Stoltz that the qualifications of advisory board members representing the citizens, quote, will be private, unquote, and not discussed at a public meeting. Mr. Stoltz said, quote, we do not want to embarrass anyone, unquote, which means the potential advisory board members. Commissioners, why would you believe it is necessary to hide and keep secret the qualifications of citizen advisory board members? Question. Either the commissioner's words about transparency are either true or false. The advisory board members represent the citizens, not the commissioners. Their qualifications affect the citizens. Do the advisory board members represent the majority of citizens in the district or not? Without the board members' qualifications, how will the citizens know? As an example, if a commissioner's interest is in real estate development or mother's views, and members are primarily collected from this perspective, it will not be a fair representation of the district, and the advisory board will be defunct before it assembles. The purpose of the Sedgwick County Commissioners developing and selecting citizens advisory board members is to keep the elected officials accountable and transparent. Keeping the qualifications of advisory board members secret from the public defeats the purpose of keeping the elected officials accountable through transparency. As known, there have been ethical complaints filed against commissioners. The qualifications of advisory members are a significant part of transparency to the public. They are like us or the commissioner's policy directions. Let me restate that. She's a question. Are they like us or the commissioner's policy directions? A likely big difference. To hide and keep secret advisory board members' qualifications because it may embarrass them is a red flag problem. Either the candidate needs to be appropriately vetted or there is the appearance of unethical appointments for the benefit of a commissioner. There is not a profit or nonprofit business that does not share its board members' required qualifications with posted resumes. Why would elected board members at Sedgwick County be any different? It wouldn't. For the public to assume without a chance to view the qualifications of their advisory board members to their elected commissioner, the process is working and transparent is an error. One district may have over 60,000 citizens represented by a few board members that may or may not be representative of the district, but more representative of the commissioner's policy directions. As one can see, it is a severe error in judgment to hide and keep secrets from the public the qualifications of its advisory board members. Either Sedgwick County intends to be transparent or not with decisions that affect the public and their districts, none could be more critical to the public than their advisory board members. We are looking forward to a correction of the secret path for advisory board members announced by County Manager Tom Stoltz. All appointed advisory board members' qualifications should be likewise posted. Thank you for allowing me to describe what would be a severe error if not corrected. Please advise how the public will know members' qualifications before being approved. Best regards and gratitude, Kate Coleman, Coleman Science and Research LLC, Dr. Kate Coleman at AOL.com. Distribution is Sedgwick County Voters Distribution, Wichita City Voters Distribution, and sponsor 4419. That's the submission in its entirety, and she did ask for that to be read in the record today, which I have done. With that, some of the comments there, I don't know that we have any obligation to post these applications online. I think they are intended to speak to staff and speak to commissioners. Again, not as an intent to be secretive, but simply I don't think there's a public need, perhaps. Again, if the public has a need, they certainly can access the data on request. They can certainly weigh in on any of these positions if they want to. I think that, again, the idea that we're trying to be secret is absolutely false. And I'm a little bit offended by the accusation that we're trying to be non-transparent or secretive. I don't think that's accurate at all. So I think at the end of the day, these are volunteer positions. People apply for them. Staff vets them. She used the word vet these candidates for these positions, and then they make recommendations. And then, of course, the county commissioners, we get presented, if you will, all the options, and we get some rationale as to why a particular person seems to be the choice of the staff person that's making the recommendation. And we can agree or disagree, and we can certainly vote on this in public and agree in public, or we can certainly have a huge debate and totally disagree. And we have done both, by the way. Going back, I can tell you there have been times where board members we didn't agree on some board members. And we have had some discussion that I think was potentially embarrassing to the people that applied. I don't think they expected that would be a public debate or public discussion. So with that, I want to be very careful not to needlessly embarrass people. I do think that the process is transparent and it is available to the public for anybody who wants to see how this works. I am proud that we are open and transparent. And so I don't know that I agree with any of the narratives that were read just a minute ago. Mr. Chairman, that's my comments.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, for the background, the explanations. Thank you, Justin, for the legal summary that you provided. So with that, unless there's other comments, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution adopting the policy regarding recommendation for at-large advisory board appointments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Legislative issues.
Legislative. Do we have legislative issues?
Chairman, I might ask here, last year about this time, I think it's time to maybe take legislative issues off the routine meeting, if that's okay
Okay.
with the commission. Back up when the session's back in.
Okay. But we do have Kim Qualls here for legislative issues, if there is any. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, no legislative issues. Committee reports. Any of the commissioners have anything to report on their committees? Oh, I should have said next item, please. Sorry about that, clerk. Committee reports.
Committee reports.
My apologies. Anybody? There, I don't see any. All right, whatever. Next item, please.
I'm trying to take my spotlight.
Other, Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And I don't know if it should have been committee reports or other, so I'm going to do it under other. I'm serving on this study team for electric vehicles. And we had our second meeting yesterday. And the two speakers that we had, two groups, actually. First of all, we had a manufacturer of charging units, level 1, 2, 3 units. So he got us a little smarter on these charging units and so forth. And then the second group, we had two people from Evergy brief on what it takes in order to be able to put charging stations in. They're going to, if we did it, for example, here, we'd have to have a separate meter to go into that. So there's a bunch of requirements. There's also a lot of funding out there for these. The problem is the match that's required and who pays for that. And remember, I'm a Republican and I believe in free market. And I don't see us paying for any gas stations out there for internal combustion engines. I don't know why government would get involved in funding. I know the federal government's interested in that, but again, remember, I'm a Republican. So I'm not sure why that we would locally get involved in trying to figure out EV stations, charging stations here. So I asked the WAMPO who is putting this committee together, what's the outcome? When we have finished this study up, what are we going to do with this study? And I really didn't get a good answer, so I'm not sure where we're going because everybody on WAMPO is part of government. And I don't see anybody that sits around that table that is going to jump up and say that we're going to take our taxpayers, local taxpayers' money and put into this. In addition, if you're looking at these level 3 chargers, those are probably things that are people that are driving across the country and they need 15 minutes or 20 minutes or however long it takes to charge with a level 3 charger, and it's not going to benefit our local community at all. I've still got a lot of questions. The jury's out on it, as far as I'm concerned. I did have an opportunity Monday night to ride in a Tesla. I'd never ridden in an electric vehicle before. And this little Tesla would go from 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. It sets you back in your seat, trust me. Now, a new Corvette will go do 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. And it's kind of comparable. But it is a cool vehicle to ride around in. The max mileage on the one that I rode in was right at 300 miles. That's when the batteries are new. Again, I'm not going to say I'm for or against them right now. I want to learn a lot more. But as I was walking out of Wampo, I ran into a fire chief from the city of Wichita, and he was standing there talking to Chris Labrum from MABCD. So we stopped, and they asked me where I was coming from, and I told them. And it was interesting because the fire chief indicated that maybe we ought to mandate smoke detectors inside of garages where we're charging electric vehicles. Because we look, city of Wichita just had $650,000 damage to a bus that was an electric vehicle. I worry about our citizens that are parking their vehicles inside of their home and plugging them in at night because of thermal runaway on those batteries. If they ran away and you don't have a smoke detector out in the garage, you may not know about the fire until it's way too late. So it's something to think about in the future. Maybe we need to start thinking about that. What kind of changes to the code do we need to make in order to make sure the community is safe? So again, a lot of questions. I don't have any answers, but I wanted to bring everybody up to speed to let you know that there's still a lot going on with this, but no decision's been made at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Any other under other? Don't see any. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Executive session.
Yes, Commissioner Howe.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of County Commissioners recess into executive session for 15 minutes until 11:02 a.m. for the preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property for the purpose of discussing the potential purchase of land and buildings for use by county departments. That the Board of County Commissioners returns to this room from executive session at 11:02 a.m.
Second. Motion and a second for executive session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty. Aye. Commissioner Howe.
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. And we will be meeting down here. Okay. See you back in 15 minutes.
All right, stand by. I'm going to give you guys a countdown. Here we go. All right, in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We've returned from executive session. No action was taken. No need for further action. Is there any other business needs to come before the commission? Don't see any, so with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
So do you want to hear my dad joke now?
Yes.
I was kind of proud of this one. I didn't get to give it. So which bear is the most condescending? The panda.
Okay, that's good. That is good.
Thank you.